What would you do if from the moment you can remember anything, you were used? Told the only significance you had was being a cog in a plan that made you sick to your stomach. Every waking moment, it is burned into your brain how useless you are, how replaceable you are. But one day, a light shines in the darkness. Glimmers of hope creep into that cold, dark world you were isolated in. But when you follow it, when you feel that you've made it out, your second reality becomes more of the same, being used and abused. How would you keep going? How would you keep that hope alive? Namine's tale is one of pain and loneliness, but the light that changes her story, that pushes her to fight for her existence, is one that we can all learn from. Welcome to the Psychology of Namine. Before we get into the video, I do want to make a point that this is a more serious topic. Abuse and manipulation are sensitive topics, and so while I think this is a very important conversation to have, I do want to recognize that this can be very hard to listen to or to engage in if you've had similar experiences or if you are dealing with something like this yourself. I'll have resources down below in the description and probably pinned in the comments as well, so I hope that you can take a look if these things resonate or if this encourages you to look for some more answers. Without further ado, let's get into the video. The first scene we ever see of Namine sets up her character incredibly well. Blank white walls of Castle Oblivion tell the player she is in the same place as Sora. Though while Sora has willingly arrived, Namine is trapped, a bird in a cage. The second piece highlighted in this scene is her art, a splash of color in a whitewashed, silent room. She paints of freedom and friendship, two alien concepts that she longs for with all of her, well, with all her thoughts. With her mysterious power, she inserts herself into Sora's world, silently engraving her face in the chains of his memories. Through this, it almost feels real, like she does exist. But the relief of being seen pales in comparison to the guilt she holds over the manipulation of Sora's memories. Even if she is being forced to twist Sora's world, it doesn't take away from the pain she experiences doing it. It's not quite clear how much abuse Namine has suffered, but if it's anything like their treatment of the Riku replica, it's not pretty. You can see Namine not meeting eye contact, wilting in the face of the organization and trying to take up as little space as possible. All very clear indicators that something is wrong, that she doesn't want to antagonize or encourage any kind of attention or more abuse. She's tied to her chair, not with actual bindings, but frozen by fear. She's treated slightly better when the plan is going well, but the threats hang over her. If she doesn't fall in line or do what is asked, she'll meet a similar fate to the Riku replica. Despite how easy it would be to hide behind the organization forcing her to manipulate Sora, Namine blames herself. She keeps herself shackled to that chair. It never even seems to cross her mind to try and escape, until Axel brings it up. She makes a run for it, finding Sora and stopping the illusion that she had created. Throughout all this time watching Sora in the Castle Oblivion, Namine has come to truly care for him. And while there isn't a ton of exposition or time spent developing the bond, we can tell that Namine cares for Sora. So it makes sense that when she does try to escape, that she looks for Sora and stops the illusion that she created. I think this is a really important line that Namine says here.
But Marluxia, he...
Bet I know who that is. Was he the fella who made you tamper with all of our memories?
If I didn't obey, he said I'd be locked in this castle forever. I've been alone for so long.
So you did what he told you to do because you were lonely?
I'm so sorry.
Don't be. Please don't cry.
Oh. Of course. I know I really don't have the right to.
That's not what I meant.
What?
She was lonely for so long, an unbearable, crushing loneliness that she longed to be free from. All it cost was a boy's heart. A boy she really didn't even know. A boy who, after her manipulation, would have given his heart up for her if she asked. The fact that she reveals her deception to Sora shows her character, and she owns that. She doesn't shy away or wilt before Sora. Even though they haven't quite interacted, Namine has been able to see Sora's heart and knows that she is safe with him. It's actually one of the few times we see Namine looking at someone as she speaks, Despite the illusion she created of the relationship, it was still safe. Safe enough for her to feel even the faintest bit of freedom and acceptance, to be seen. Which made her realize this is not how she wanted to be seen. She breaks the illusion, accepting that she would never be in anyone's heart, so that she doesn't continue to hurt Sora. And I think that's important. I know I've rushed up to the point where Sora and Namine start interacting, but I want to pause and just quickly go back to the loneliness and the isolation that Namine felt. She didn't have anyone that truly cared. We don't know how long she's been awake for, but we do know that she's been trapped by the organization for most of that time, used as a pawn in their schemes. Seeing how easily Roxas was pulled into the ranks shows how sharp Namine is. She was able to discern that something wasn't right, but she was isolated, unloved, unwanted, and then she's shown this boy that she can insert her life into, and how impactful that was for her to finally have somebody that cared for her. And so the choice to break that illusion, to essentially look at the dream of what could be, and then look back at where she was before and decide it's better that way, I can't even imagine, I can't even put into words how hard that choice must have been. Stepping in to help Sora, though, causes her to harm the Riku replica. The exchange between Larxene and Namine is chilling, honestly, if you look at it through the lens of abuser and abused. Larxene and the organization forced Namine to change Sora, but then threw it back in her face when she tried to stand up for herself. It's not that Namine didn't have a conscience, it's clear that she struggled through all of it. It's a very common tactic too in abusive relationships. Veiled threats and coercion that, when challenged, are weaved into a narrative that it was actually the victim's fault that the abuser did something. They were the ones making the choices after all. How dare they try to shift the blame? I'm sure a lot of people, if you are online in this day and age, know the term gaslighting. It's a term that's kind of been diluted just because it's become so commonly used. But the idea is, right, that if someone is isolated and they're only getting information from one person, it is very easy to manipulate that information. And so if someone is being abusive and then turns around and says, no, actually, the reality is this, a lot of times that mix of manipulation and isolation and the abuser kind of being the only person that the victim can rely on is very, very, very complex to deal with and wrestle with. It's essentially the abuser saying, hey, this is your reality now, and being so manipulative, using fear tactics, using coercion, using veiled threats to make sure that that person stays in line. And as I pointed out before, those veiled threats weren't empty. The second Namine stepped out of line, she is met with physical abuse, slapped aside. Even after experiencing all of that, Namine blames herself for everything that happened to Sora. Again, this is a very common victim mindset where I don't even know if I can explain it well enough, because the level of manipulation, the level of just shifting blame and gaslighting causes the victim to question their own sense of themselves, right and wrong, reality. And so it makes sense that Namine internalizes all of that and doesn't even know what to believe. But the most powerful thing through all of this is Sora's acceptance. Namine was ready to take the blame and disappear, to help Sora escape and fade into oblivion. She catches herself though as she starts to grieve, saying she doesn't even have a right to feel bad. Sora, despite knowing everything is a lie, helps her. He comforts her. Again, just this reality check of, you are okay. This is not your fault. And I think having that second perspective and having that second person to kind of give her stability helps her to see herself as a person, which is so important. And so it's this kind of layered message, right, of as Sora treats her like a person, right, as he treats her with kindness and with love, she gets that mirrored back to her, right? She sees herself as a person who does want to live, right, who does want to be a person. This is cut short though as she's captured by Marluxia, once more held hostage. When Marluxia commands her to erase the last bits of Sora's memories, essentially destroying his heart, she stands up for herself, finding the courage to stand up to her captors because of the kindness Sora showed her. Sora at this point is pretty far gone and tells Namine to go ahead and destroy his heart because he knows he'll always protect her. Namine is face to face with the consequences of her actions. A boy who has forgotten so much and is on the brink of completely losing himself. She feels guilty, and as penance, she helps Sora rechain his memories together, forgetting her and the time spent in Castle Oblivion. Before that offer though, she gives him a choice. Either go back to normal and remember all his friends and loved ones, or forget everything and stay with Namine. It's this very real moment that I think often gets overlooked. Namine is growing her own heart, even if she's not aware of that yet, and desperately yearns to be seen and to be known. She knows the right thing is to give Sora his memories back, but she can't help but hope, just a little bit, that he will give up everything for her, to be chosen for once, to be wanted. After Sora asks to gain his memories back, she says this.
Make me like I was.
Oh, okay. Nobody needs to keep a bunch of memories that aren't real, right? You want to remember all of the people who are really important to you. Anybody would choose that.
Nobody needs to keep a bunch of memories that aren't real. It's this painful acceptance that she isn't important to Sora. At the core of Namine is this need for acceptance, to be wanted. This could be from a host of things. It could be because she's the nobody of Kairi, residual feelings could definitely be there. It could be from her isolation in the castle or the abuse she has endured from the organization. Having someone actually show her a modicum of kindness would have such a profound impact on anyone. So of course she's going to want to continue to experience that, and why she broaches the question to Sora in the first place. I don't really think it's manipulative for her to say all this, or to share how she feels. She's genuinely looking for connection, and logically knows that she isn't really anything to Sora. Even if it was all built on a lie, Namine cherishes the memories and experiences she has had with Sora. Sora doesn't see it as an ultimatum though, with his choice to remember or forget. He believes that he can still be friends with Namine even if he does forget. Namine had this very strict viewpoint about being able to stay together or be forgotten. There was no compromise or in-between for her. So again, it's this very profound, impactful moment for her to be able to make this promise with Sora. A promise to not be forgotten. A promise of a better future together with others, not alone. Even though it hurts her greatly to disappear and be forgotten, the promise gives her hope. I didn't really know where to work it in at this point, but when Namine changes Sora's charm to the star, there's this moment where we get this backstory with Sora and Riku, and Namine kind of inserts herself into that memory, where both fight over her to see who's going to protect her. The charm is an embodiment of Sora's quote-unquote promise to protect Namine. And even though it's a fake memory, the importance of that and the story that she wanted to tell is just something that I wanted to point out. And that's really it for Sora's side interacting with Namine. That promise though rings through the rest of the franchise, tying Namine's destiny with Sora's. Riku's interactions with Namine show another side of her. We knew that there was a fear of the organization. We can see her hiding behind the pod as Riku comes in, and she audibly gasps when Riku exclaims in anger, seeing Sora suspended in front of him.
Sora! What have you done to Sora?
Nothing.
It shows the experiences that she endured in the castle are etched into her heart quite deeply. She's able to regulate herself though and talk with Riku about his darkness, offering to lock it away. Darkness scares Namine, probably being paired with isolation and also just the fear of what lurks inside the darkness. While Riku declines and goes on his own journey to find himself, Namine isn't free after these events of Chain of Memories. Someone else finds her, locking her away in that same isolating cage once more. During Days, we get a peek into more of Namine's thoughts. We see that she is scared of Diz, noting that there are things he won't tolerate. She escaped the organization, but she is still trapped, a bird in a cage, with Diz holding the key. There was another glimmer of hope though. Roxas and Xion fighting to exist has a pretty direct impact on Namine. She's always been told that she shouldn't exist, that she's useless, but watching Roxas and Xion fight so hard to live makes Namine question. Diz consistently reinforces this idea, constantly dehumanizing her, essentially trying to strip her of her autonomy and will. But the strength of heart that Roxas and Xion possess, the fight to exist, to be their own person, helps Namine see a different perspective, a new world where she has a future and wouldn't fade away. This starts out as a quiet voice in her head though, that would continually grow throughout the events of Kingdom Hearts 2. Namine in Kingdom Hearts 2 has a more serene attitude. She takes on a mysterious, almost guide-like role for Roxas, as she helps him to come to terms with the returning memories of Sora. As she reveals the truth to Roxas, she introduces herself as a witch because that's what Diz called her. This line makes my blood boil. The casual way she says this, the lack of emotion that she has while talking about her unusual power to impact Sora's memories, she essentially just traded one abusive, manipulative captor for another. Diz just uses her to fix everything. The way that he talks directly impacts the way that Namine sees things. I mean, the way that she talks about nobodies is so fundamentally messed up. The nonchalant, matter-of-fact way that she tells Roxas that he wasn't even meant to exist in the first place is indicative of the things that Diz had said to her that she's internalized. You can see this in the way that Roxas reacts to what she said, asking, how could you even say that, even if it was true? Namine has literally been dehumanized, made to think she is nothing, not intended to even exist. Diz reinforced the abuse Namine experienced in the castle, relegated to a tool once again, stripping away those thoughts of freedom and autonomy, though with an extra helping of inferiority added in to poison Namine's self-image. She's held captive by Diz, being pulled away the second she veers off the directions he gave her. Her fight isn't gone though. The promise to Sora gives her the drive to fight back, to give Roxas the same hope that she received from Sora, that they won't disappear completely. Even if they are forgotten, they won't be lost. During the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2, there was this calmness, this sereneness about the fact that she would disappear. But like I said, with seeing Xion and Roxas, it planted that small voice in her head. And so there's two different voices fighting for control in Namine's head. One of despair and one of hope. The voice of despair tells her to just do what she's told, to be the useless tool she was created to be, that was the way she would be useful. The other voice, the one born from her interactions with Sora, the oath to return. This hope pushes her to fight back, to fight for freedom. I think this all builds up during the year she is with Diz, but it's finally truly crystallized for her in this interaction near the end, right before Sora returns. Diz orders Riku to take care of Axel and Namine, and Namine finally has the glass shatter. She finally truly sees how Diz regards her. With people in that situation, there's this idea of, if I can just be good enough, if I can, do everything that's asked of me, then I can be safe. Then maybe I won't have a reason to make them upset. And so Namine had this idea that as long as she was useful, she would be safe, or at least okay. Once it sunk in though that Diz wanted her gone, that no matter what she did, Diz would just get rid of her. It was the last push to taking action. People in an abusive environment know the red flags. They see what is happening. But either through fear or through hope, they try to hold on. And there's usually a building tension to get away. And you just need that one push to take action. And that action is really scary. Once you make that decision, everything changes. And so for a lot of people, their brain says, it is safer for me to try to not rock the boat, to stay safe, than to try to get away or try to go to safety and have that explode or backfire. And so taking action is one of the hardest things to do in that situation. But Namine does take action. She takes that chance and unites with Kairi, and eventually safely resides within her heart, getting to see Roxas whenever Kairi and Sora are together. Namine though takes a backseat for pretty much the rest of the series, sadly, but there's this new resolve that she has, and we see that resolve in Kingdom Hearts 3. Of course, Namine doesn't just flip a switch and everything's completely fine. Even in the end, Namine can't completely break free from that internalized inferiority, feeling as if nobody even cares if she returns. Sora reinforces that the others do care, and Namine is appreciative, but it was a little look into her thinking after everything she's been through. And while it may be controversial that she returned, I think the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 for Namine is amazing. Finally getting her own life, her own freedom, and being offered a hand. Not to be used, but to join others together, as equals, a somebody. I've tried to weave this into the video throughout, but I did want to take a moment right at the end to better talk about abuse and abusive relationships separately, as it can be a really tough topic to broach. I think Namine's story is a really good, albeit surface level look at how abusive relationships wear away at someone, even if it's not physical. Abuse can show up in many different ways, with the main focus being power and control. The abuser uses any avenue to pull autonomy and control away from the victim, and we can see that woven through a lot of Namine's journey. In Castle Oblivion, she's told time and again how worthless she is, how she has nowhere to go. Wearing away someone's self-worth is a common tactic used to make the victim dependent on the abuser. Same with isolation, keeping the victim alone, holed up and telling them they can't go anywhere, or that no one would even want them if they got out. Being a nobody adds to that for Namine because she never even considers herself on the same level as a somebody, being literally dehumanized time and time again throughout. And Diz is especially vindictive and continuously carves at her sense of self, making sure she is kept under his thumb. See, with verbal and emotional abuse, it starts off very small. It's this very undercutting way of chipping away at someone's sense of self, which I think is even more harmful because the scrapes and bruises of the heart are not easily seen. It's harder to catch. This typically starts off, like I said, small, but it ramps up. It's usually an outburst that arises from tension, and after the outburst, there's usually a makeup period where the abuser goes above and beyond to reconcile things. This typically involves love bombing, which is an overwhelming amount of positive words, gifts, or anything that really overwhelms the person. It kind of floods you and gets your mind confused, essentially, because you're like, how can this person be so nice, but then they, do this horrible, awful thing, but then they do this nice thing again. Like, it must be my fault, right? Like, I'm the one messing this up. If I would just be quieter, if I would just stop saying things, it would stop making them mad. So it's very, very confusing for the victim. The more that this abuse continues, the less time is spent on that makeup period, as tension and outbursts happen more and more often. Honestly, I feel like the best way to describe it is a Venus flytrap, where there's a lot of small red flags that go under the radar until the victim is isolated completely and stuck in their abuser's web. I know this was super short. I don't really know how much to spend on this or how much to talk about this. I don't want to overwhelm people with information. If you have more questions, please ask them down below in the comments or reach out to me personally. I can't be a counselor for you, but I can help clarify some things, point you on the right path towards resources if the ones down below aren't helpful. Again, I know this is a very, very deep topic, and I spent, not a whole lot of time talking through it, but I hope if any of this resonates or if it sets off alarm bells that you look into this some more. There are abuse hotlines, info online that you can look up discreetly if you are worried that you're being monitored or if something's going on. I also, like I said, have resources down below if you want to check that out. I'm really not sure how to smoothly segue into a wrap up for this video. Namine's story really is just such a somber one when it's viewed in this lens. It has a happy ending, and I'm so happy for Namine that she had someone there to be her guiding light. It really just takes one person to shine a light on someone in a dark place to give that conflicting evidence, that second perspective, that maybe the things you're experiencing from others isn't okay. And Sora was that light for her, a shooting star that she wished upon with all her heart to save her. And he shone brightly, lighting up her world and changing it forever. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to leave it very, very brief at the end here. If you think someone could benefit from hearing this story, please share it with them. I really hope that this is a great way to start some conversations with friends or family or with other people. One of the hardest things about abuse and the way that it isolates people is that it's really, really tough to talk about. And so I hope that this video can be something that can, start that conversation. I do want to thank my patrons for supporting me. I know this video took a long time to get produced. Honestly, it was just really, really tough with the current climate and just the nature of this video. It was hard to be in a place mentally to kind of dig into a lot of this and to talk about all this. So I hope the wait hasn't been too long for you guys, but I appreciate the support. And if you want to support me, you can on Patreon and on YouTube. Subscribe, leave a like on the video. I always like to have like a comment for people at the end of the video. So if you saw all the way up to the end, promise. I like that word. I think that's a very important word for Namine's story. So if you got this far in the video, work promise into your comment or just leave the word promise, and I'll see you in the next video.